So recording this the morning after the big relaunch into 2.0. I don't know how you guys are feeling, but it's been an absolutely mental week. And just to top it up, normally I train typically on a Tuesday. It'll be anywhere between 3 and 5 p.m. Yesterday I entered the gym, walked in at 8 p.m. and met a whole new crowd as I was going in to do Bulgarian split squats. I thought I was going in. I was walking into the gym thinking this is going to be a PR session. This is going to be, I'm so amped up, so buzzed out. Did like 2 warm-up sets, and I was like 30 kilos is feeling like 40, and 40 started feeling like 50. So lost a couple of reps, but yeah, it still did the job. But it just brought me on to thinking about how my training times have changed over the years, but also just how they change every sort of 3 to 6 months. Every 3 to 6 months, you sort of cycle your training just to try new things, or whether routines changed. I thought it'd be an interesting discussion to begin with, just kind of share training times, share sort of any hacks and productivity methods for training and optimizing performance, whether you're training in the morning, whether you're training in the afternoon, or whether you're training in the evening. One thing for sure in the evening is like the crowd is just nuts. I thought I'd be the only one there at 8 p.m. I thought that the rush hour was between 6 and 8. I walked in, I could barely get a bench. I was doing Bulgarians off the end of a bench, the bench press station, just because there's no benches available. And normally,
surprised out of all the benches, the bench press was available though.
Yeah, that's shocking, right? It was Tuesday. That's why it was Tuesday. So everyone already done chest. But normally on this workout, I superset, like I do when I'm warming up, I'm doing arms, and then I'm doing leg curls, and then I'm doing Bulgarians body weight, just like trying to like condense my workout. Yesterday it was just straight sets. There was no method of going around the gym. So yeah, let's share some training tips for different times of the day, because I know people listening some people are early birds, they're training at 5 a.m. Others may be having to train at 8 p.m. every night. So let's discuss optimization for various things. But let's start with where you guys are training at. What about you, Ivan? Because I know you've recently done a switch back to your morning training slots. So yeah, talk us through that.
Yeah, so there was a period where I was training in the afternoon for a little bit, and yeah, to be fair, like performance was good. I found my strength was really good. Obviously, by that time, I would have done a lot of work as well. So going into the session, knowing that I don't have to come back to a lot of work was also pretty cool. But there's always going to be like a bit of a flip side to that, because for a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, having to put my body upside down, move my body in weird positions. This is going to sound a little bit funny, but it doesn't feel very comfortable having 3 meals in you by the time you're training, just because of how things sort of move around in there. So it's actually better to feel like a little bit lighter, which is why I eventually made the transition to sort of go back into the morning, and I could just feel a lot better. I know that may sound really funny and really weird, but yeah, I just found it a good switch. Because even though training in the afternoon, theoretically, research is showing that that's where you're going to be primed to be your strongest, even though, you can sort of retrain that whole thing. For me, it just didn't work. And I actually felt better going into the gym fresh, with a fresh mind as well, because work as well can be quite neurologically fatiguing, meaning that when you do go into your session, it can also impact that to some degree, depending on who you are. So I found that sort of getting my sessions in first thing, tackling the day, then coming home, and then getting into work, I found was it just suits me a lot better. So
what question I have is, when you're upside down, like, so just the curiosity on the whole digestion thing. When you are training upside down, what sort of time frames are you leaving between meal and training? Because I'm assuming you're upside down for a long time, right? In some of the sessions.
I'm sort of kicking upside down. I'm just moving my body dynamically in a lot of like on the rings and stuff. And it's not the timing of the meals that really matters too much, is because my diet is very high volume. It's very high fiber in general. So like most of the day I'm going to feel quite full. So it's just going into, it's not the stomach that feels the sort of the stress. It's more the lower intestines. I don't want to be going into my sessions all gassy and stuff like that. So it's just the way it is.
So what sort of frequency are you going to the toilet? As in you're mentioning that you're feeling quite gassy on this, or is it because of the high volume food? What sort of regularity?
Yeah. It's sort of the there's this thing where high volume foods and just eating a lot. again, to sort of sustain a level of leanness without having to be hungry all the time, my food volume is quite high. I think I was telling Ed the other day, I think the total weight of my food for the day could be anywhere between 4.5, 5 kilos in total, you know. So the less I can sort of carry that while I'm training, the better, which is why I usually like and enjoy the morning workouts for that reason. So feel a lot lighter in that regard. So yeah, it makes a difference for me. I'm sure there are other people who think differently, but yeah, it's the price you pay for eating high volume foods.
Yeah. How far off your leanest are you now?
2 kilos. So about that. Yeah, 2 kilos. I would say 2 kilos of like body fat, not like intestinal volume. Yeah.
Cool. And Ed, what about you? Where are you at with your training in terms of timings and optimizations to maximize performance?
So at the moment I'm training normally around 10 in the morning. I've been pretty consistent with that for the last year and a half, maybe a year or so. I find, to be honest, it just fits well with fitting in with my meals. So make sure I've got one meal in beforehand. I don't actually mind going in early morning and training fasted, but it fits in nicely with just getting meals in, having space after that first meal, just to let everything settle down. Not on getting the same positions as Ivan, but still nice not to be too bloated when I'm trying to lift hard. But then it also just fits in well with separating some good work blocks, and then also just family life as well, with just say my son's routine and things as well. So it allows me to get a really solid block of work done early in the morning. I find that's when I'm on, at my best, can blast through a good amount of work, have a little break with the training, and then get back into some work again. So I find from lifestyle, work, and also just training performance, it kind of just ticks all those boxes, and it's just a nice balance, really.
Yeah, 10 a.m. is a nice time to train. I find if I ever go on the weekends, I'll always train at like 10, 11 o'clock. So it's a really nice sweet spot for me as well. Yeah, we said you hit one meal, right? And what does that meal consist of?
So the moment I'm having like a fat-free Greek yogurt, some muesli, some nuts, and then some raisins in there. So it's reasonably large, but then also with the nuts as well, it takes a while to digest. I think I could have a slightly smaller meal or something that digests a bit quicker, and have it a bit closer to the session. But I find then I need to be eating probably more food later on in the day. And so I just found a system that basically just works in terms of meal frequency, the meals that they're made up of. They're easy to prep, they fit my schedule, help me feel satiated, but not too full. So after just tweaking over, I guess really it's probably been years, but I've just kind of just got this blueprint that's working for me right now. And again, there was a period probably a year and a half ago, I was training at 6 a.m. Prior to that, I've done mid-morning, early afternoon. So I've changed it over time. I think it's comes down to some basic principles that I know kind of work well for me, just that I'm not eating right before I train. Like to get some food in reasonably soon afterwards. That may well be as much mental as physiological. I like to break up my work with some form of exercise. Like to avoid the evenings. So as long as I'm kind of hitting those principles, the exact breakdown can be fluid to match what my life setup is at that time, really.
Yeah, that's bang on. And do you use any sort of pre-workouts or caffeine, or what do you use before that?
At 9:15, I'll make myself a black coffee. So that's when that's when I shut the laptop down, and then that's kind of end of work for that time, and then I'll switch on in terms of like training mindset. Get changed, have the coffee.
Play Rocky.
Yeah, exactly. Get some motivational music going. And then walk down the high street to the gym as if I'm walking into a UFC octagon.
Ivan, do you get coffee in the morning as well? With
yeah, definitely.
When do you hit it? Before your walk, or before your cardio, or before
before cardio for sure.
Is there a walk in there as well, or is it just cardio?
Yeah, so I'll get up about 3, as you guys probably know now, and I'll have first thing I'll do is start making the coffee. As my coffee is sort of brewing, I'll fill my little water mug with electrolytes and just like a little bit of sugar-free cordial filled with water. And I find that in combination with the coffee is enough to sort of get me prepped for the cardio that's about to happen in about 20, 30 minutes. So I'll take that down, go for like a little walk on my treadmill now. So I'm not walking out the streets at 3 a.m., which is good. Mum's very happy about that. So I'll maybe like a 20, 30 minute walk just to get warmed up, listen to a podcast or something, and then use the bathroom. And then from there, as soon as I get off the treadmill, I'm like, okay, ready to go. I'll go from podcast to music, and then I'll get on the bike, and I'll put on my like little cycling shoes, get like a little routine going, and then
you got cycling shoes now?
Yeah, I've had them the whole time. Little cleats that you pop in. Yeah. Much better to cycle with. Yeah.
How do you find cycling, stationary cycling? Because it's something I've never been able to get into, and I can't do treadmill stuff either because I find it just I'm just looking at the clock the whole time. How do you zone yourself out for 40, 60 minutes just on one?
Yeah, I know. I've been thinking about this too. I'm like, what is keeping me doing this for so long?
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. Like I really do. But I would say, well, that's why I make the switch from podcast or something that's more educational or just some easy listening to music, and that's what sort of I find music is very motivating for me, and I find that's what sort of keeps me going through the cardio sessions, and I just enjoy it. There is this point, like pretty much almost every session, like I'm at some point I'm feeling, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get through 50 minutes of this? And then it gets to like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And then, I don't know, you get into like a really good rhythm and everything feels easy. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a void. It's just really good fun, And then because everything starts to feel easy, you feel warm, music's cranking and obviously the caffeine sort of coming in as well at the same time. And it just makes the entire experience like really pleasurable.
You probably are in some sort of meditative state at that time. Because if you think about it, you're doing something.
That's what I think. Yeah.
You're doing something very repetitive. You're probably listening to something. I'm assuming you're listening to something like house, right? Like,
House.
It's techno. Like it's very like
techno. Yeah. It's repetitive as well.
That's repetitive as well. You're in a stationary environment. Maybe you just lose your mind in it.
Yeah, I literally just keep my eyes closed for most of the time. I'll look up and 10 minutes is gone. I'm like, oh. Okay, that's cool.
It's probably some sort of meditation benefit. Yeah, that's interesting.
And that's what I've always found that to be very meditative for me. So.
Well, the reason why I say that is because with other training, you have to be very conscious, right? Because it's a skill acquisition with what you're doing. There's no real. You don't have to think about moving your legs like that, do you? You go into that subconscious state of just like whatever you access.
Yeah. There's no need for me to think too much about what I'm doing, right? And so I'll have sometimes my best ideas about just certain things in anything when I'm on the bike. It's really cool. So that's my time. That's like my 50 minutes to an hour or whatever, where it's just okay, cool. It's just you and your own thoughts really, and banger tunes.
Yeah, nice. And then you have breakfast. Then you go to the gym, and then
So I'll have like breakfast, say like 5:30 a.m. And then just gear up, ready to go to the gym. And then just before the gym, I'll go for like a little walk nearby, and then I'll get into it as well.
Yeah.
So good way to start the day.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've toyed around with different timings for ages. I think when I used to when I was waking up early with the alarm, that's when I used to train in the morning around sort of 10, 11, because I'd already have done like say 3 hours of work from 6 till 9, and then I'd go to the gym from then. But since I've been waking up a bit later without the alarm, I found if I do that, if I go to the gym in the morning, by the time I get back and everything, it's like 10:30, and then I feel like I haven't done anything, and it's 10:30. So that's what I was doing for a bit. And whilst we were quiet, when things were quiet, it's actually quite nice because you feel like the day goes slower. When you've got a lot to do though, it really puts you up against it. And I feel like, how am I going to get everything done by a reasonable time and enjoy the session? You don't want to be in the session thinking I need to get home quickly.
Of course.
So that's when I started pushing it back. And instead I just go for a 30-minute walk in the morning. And then instead, in fact, most of my training times across the week is slightly different. Like for example, Monday is 5, Tuesday is 2, Thursday is 2 or 4, and Friday is 5. Like I've realized, but it's whatever's going on that day. Like for example, I have a lot of if I have a lot of meetings, I won't really train that day. If I have if I don't have many, I'll train at a different time. Or if it's a heavy client focused day, it'll be at the end of the day. So it's just, I found that it's just the
adaptable,
themes.
very adaptable.
Yeah, so
very
long as
adaptable.
I just train either after meal 1 or meal 2. So meal 1's at 12, meal 2's at 3:30, meal 4's usually 7:30. So yeah, I found that works. But then we were saying, I think off air, in that if I wasn't working at all, I'd probably train in the morning, just because I think training with a clear head and not having a time limit on it, there's nothing feels better than that, right? When you're just in the gym there for an hour and a half, just slowly going through your workout. Those are some of my best sessions if I can get those.
And just to be clear, sorry, Ed, I was going to say, and the reason that my current situation works well for me, because I don't mind at the moment working till say like 7:38 some nights, just because it also pairs up with the meetings that we do. Yeah, exactly. So that means I do start my day later, but I know that I'm happy to finish later.
Yeah.
Where I know Ed and you guys are a little bit on the opposite side, right? You guys want to finish the afternoon quite earlier, like a specific cutoff, meaning that you do have to be a lot more strict with that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah. I think Ed's definitely way more strict than I am. His is a hard cut, but then he's got, when you've got a son or a daughter, it becomes different, right?
Yeah. And I think it can actually help. I think
100%. Yeah.
I think on one side, obviously, you've got this extra responsibility, and that there's another massive variable that's very variable in itself to manage. But it gives you these really strong cutoffs. And I think this is where we saw people in lockdowns going from working in the office to working at home suddenly couldn't manage their days. And it's because they didn't have these firm timings in place anymore. You're expected to be at a desk at 8:30. You're expected to leave at 6. Well, then those things are set. And the same as potentially if you've got a kid, like I know I have to pick him up from childminder at 5. So, that can't really be negotiated unless, I completely change his hours there. But then to get everything I need to get done, then everything else has to be in line before that. Like if I fancy a lion one day, yeah, I could have one, but something has to get cut. There's no room for messing around there. And that's where I think, although there's a lot of research, I think there's merit on paper with timing things to whether you're an early person, a late person. And, Greg Potter was on the podcast a little while ago, explaining the benefits of that. I think on paper, that's brilliant. But we know that we don't live in this optimal environment. And there's so many aspects of our lives that aren't optimal, and that making it practical is the most important. And that's where, you might love training early morning, but if you've got other things going on, you've got loads of commitments with your kids, or you work with clients in another country, so you're having to work early, whatever it is, then you're either training in the evening or you're not training. So, what's your option? And I think that comes back then to you, Akash, like ideally you'd love to train at 10 a.m, take your time, but your highest priority at the moment is the company. So you're using your most valuable kind of mental time towards that. And then the training still getting done, but just maybe not at the optimal time for you.
Yeah. I think there's always that trade-off. It's like, okay, I've got this time in the morning. I know 1 hour in the morning is worth 2 hours of productivity. So for me, it's a no-brainer to want to move training slightly later, just for that exact same reason. And because I'm waking up slightly later, I wake up probably at 6:30 compared to before, and I was going straight into work. Whereas now I'll take my time in the morning, but it gives me time to really be creative and be productive. And then I can have the training session later on. And performance is not like, it's not like you're like, oh, I'm training in the afternoon, I'm doing this way, and in the morning it's this way. What you realize, if you actually train it multiple times, you start realizing that your strength is pretty much the same across the board, so long as you go into it with the right sort of thinking. The only time I noticed a difference, and this is probably relates back to launch day yesterday, is when you've had a really stressful day or a very high energy. That's when you notice the difference in training strength. And I have noticed that when I train in the end of the day, and it's been a very wired day of work, then strength is noticeably dropped. But those days they're not every single day, right? And if they are, then you probably should train in the morning.
I think I was gonna say this earlier when you mentioned that you noticed quite a big drop off in your performance at the end of the day. And I think that can be a really good tip just for people to remember, where I think a lot of clients or members, they fall into the trap of delaying their session all the time, thinking I'll just do it later. And then it gets to 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and they go in the session because they've had such a massive day at work, or they've had other things pop up out of nowhere. And then they go in that session and just be like, oh, I'm just going to do something. And then that is when people start to run into issues because they haven't potentially committed to a time that they can consistently do. Yeah. So if you know that the day you're prone to letting the day get the better of you and run away from you, then commit to an early morning session. Yes, it may be hard first. It may be really hard at first, but over time, you get used to the time that you regularly train at. So yeah, even though your performance may not be 100%, the thing is, if you're doing 90% consistently and you're getting your sessions in across the months and the years, that is going to be far better than sporadically getting your sessions in when you can, right? So I think that is just a really simple approach for people to move away from, just being like, oh, I'll just do it at the end of the day. Because I've not seen that work with many clients, to be fair. Have you guys seen that work?
There needs to be a cut. So for example, my way in the week, when I'm training, if I train at 5:30 or 6, which is maybe 2-3 days a week, my driver to make sure it does happen then is getting home for dinner on time, because I know dinner's going to be served at 7:30. I want to make sure I'm at the dinner table. If I delay the training, then I'm eating on my own, right? So it's like, and it's just not fair on everyone else. So that's my driver to get it done. Like kind of like Ed's one. That it's probably not as big as that, but it's still internally, it's one that gets me off the seat at 5:30 into the gym. And the training sessions are great then, but it's only when like it's a mental day, then they're a bit different. The other thing that sprung to mind is, do you remember Louis Simmons would used to say, like, I can't remember if it was Louis Simmons or if it was another powerlifting guy, but he said you need to be strong in the morning, you need to be strong in the evening. It's like you should train yourself at different times so you can be strong at any time. And I remember thinking that. I was like, oh yeah, maybe that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because you can get so obsessive with that. I need to train at 6 in the morning when the birds rise, right? It's that kind of, the scenarios are so specific. Then you think any other time is going to be suboptimal. And I'm sure you've had that phase in your life. And I've definitely had that. I was like, if they don't train at this time, the training session is a waste of time. But then I'm like, if you want to be strong at all times of the day, right?
I don't think it's more suboptimal. I think something doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Like I've spoken to Ed about this as well, where I think maybe I haven't missed a cardio day in like 2 years, except that one day recently, which we won't get into. But there was one time where I didn't do it first thing in the morning, or I did it like in the afternoon. And even though it felt like my performance was better, my watts were heaps better, I had so much more energy, it still didn't feel as good as doing it first thing. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, this doesn't give you the same kick like it does. I don't know. There's something about, even though I couldn't crank out as many watts first thing, or I couldn't get the same kilometers, I still preferred it in the morning because it just felt better. It was just a great way to start my day. And maybe it is that like that meditative place I need to sort of get into before my day can commence.
Yeah.
So I found that was a big difference, but that's more just cardio. That's not weight training.
Another thing, just on that, like I know it's a massive difference when I go for a 30-minute walk before I start work. Like the mood, the way I feel, the longevity of like flow is so much higher. Yeah. If I don't do that and I'm just sort of, and I think, I go for a walk at like 11, 12, you start getting that fogginess that comes in. You just haven't moved. You start feeling sluggish. That I've noticed that for sure. I don't know. Mm-hmm. There's probably multiple things going on there. Just the fact that you're moving around, getting some outdoor sunlight, all these things probably make a massive difference, and just some activity, right? So that's one thing I have noticed. So even if I don't train with weights in the morning, that's like my sort. It's probably the same thing you're doing, right? In the early morning, just getting some activity in.
Yeah. There's something about getting the body temperature up and just getting your body moving first thing, right? The body just loves it. Hates stagnation. It hates it, And we all experienced it the last couple of days, right? Like how pathetic we feel if we just sit for too long,
Oh, honestly, like yesterday, I got to 2 p.m. and I hadn't even moved yet. I was like, I need to get. And then by the time I got, I was like, I need to get out. Then the tech client were like, oh yeah, we need a call. I was like, are you kidding me? When are we gonna? So by the time I got out, it was 3 p.m. I hadn't moved off my desk till 3 p.m. I felt horrible. Like my head was hurting.
But you don't think straight too. Like your clarity and your, I don't know, you don't think as clearly as you do if you've been sitting for that long.
It makes you think, how do people just not move in the day? When you hear of people that just don't, like, the average step count's like 1, 2, 3,000.
Yeah. Like, and I think they're being productive by sitting at, they think they're being productive by only getting 2,000 steps per day because they just sit all day. No, you're not productive. You're literally losing brain power by not going for walks.
But I think that explains why so often people, even if they don't go all in with all of the transformation checklists, if they increase their steps, increase their water intake, clean up diet a little bit, they're reporting back to us like, my mental health's better, feeling more productive, my mood's better, energy levels are through the roof. Like, these people aren't doing crazy 5-day-a-week programs. They're potentially just hitting 8 to 10K steps regularly and now drinking 3 liters of water. And, that's, it's not going to get you in photo shoot shape in 12 weeks, but that's going to make a massive difference on your quality of life from relatively small tweaks, really.
It's like the secret to high performance, isn't there? That some reason isn't adopted as high as it should be. It's like the physical is the foundation. Physical.
Yeah. I think that's where like all of our routines have changed over time, and all of ours are slightly different. But I think as a general thing, if your routine allows it, if you can do something in the morning, something in the evening or afternoon / evening, like a walk in the morning, train in the afternoon, vice versa. Like I train in the morning, do a longer walk in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It just splits it up a little bit. It means that you're not sitting down for a really long period of time. And I think it just gives you that mental refresh from whatever you are sitting down to do as well.
Well, I remember Shane O'Mara said in a podcast when he talks about walking, he said spreading it out has so many benefits as well to just to versus like just I'm going to do it all in the morning and then I'm not going to move at all day long.
Yeah.
And there's noticeable differences in cognitivity, but also I think he was discussing around metabolism as well could be potentially different, but I don't know too much on that.
Yeah, I think he was talking in regards to health from there.
Yeah. Well, when we think about it, walking is a fantastic tool for digestion too.
Yeah.
And so if you time that with your, again, this is if you can time it. Usually people can have lunch and go for a walk, right, during their lunch break. Yeah. That's a perfect time to combine the two there. So you can optimize your digestion and you can optimize your activity, right, at the same time. So they go hand in hand, which is really cool. It's probably one of the reasons I love walking so much. It helps with digesting 10 kilos of food.
High fiber diet.
The drawbacks. No one talks about that.
How many calories is it?
Actually discuss that one day. 3.5.
Okay, so it's not like super high either. It's probably just
heaps of volume. Yeah.
So what sort of grams of potatoes are you talking about? Because I don't think that's your go-to source, right?
Yeah. Oh no, oats.
Oh, it's oats.
I'll have like over 200 grams of oats a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that will fill you up for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of fruits and berries, a lot of veg, and yeah, I do like my potato starches. But I also I do like the little protein ice creams I make too. Like they turn out to be like a liter of ice cream a couple of times a day as well.
What's the recipe?
Oh, it's literally just 400 grams ice, 200 mils of water, some bit of salt, some xanthan, like 2-3 grams of xanthan gum, protein powder, like 100 grams of Greek yogurt, and that turns out to be an incredible like little just ice cream treat. It's like it comes out like soft serve consistency if you mix it well, but that can sort of grow into like a liter of fluid by the end. So yeah, it's good.
It's good. Good performance hack actually for those who are training in the morning is having something sweet or at least sweet tasting, even if it's not calorie demanding. For example, if I do train in the morning, one non-negotiable will be to have BCAAs pre and during. Like the benefit on my performance and just how I feel during the session is massive. Also some salt in there as well. Combine those two together, salt, BCAAs, and about a liter of water, and you're set for the session. And you won't feel like you're hungry. You won't feel like you get any sort of low blood sugar during sessions, whether it's in your head or not. You won't even get that weird taste in your mouth, which is the worst thing to be training with. So that's definitely something that anyone who's training in the morning, if they're worrying about waking up early enough to get a meal in, they should definitely get that in. Because I remember there was a time where I thought you had to eat breakfast as soon as you woke out of bed. I don't know if you remember this. Like, literally, as soon as you get up, within 15 minutes, you need to have a steak down you. And honestly, there was a period where I set the time of 15 minutes. I need to get this food in, and that adds another stress level because you're like, all right, if I eat then I train in the morning, I've got to wait another hour and a half. So suddenly you got 2 hours in the morning of like dead time because you got to train, and then by the time you get back, then you need to eat again. By the time you've had 2 meals, and it's like 10 p.m. 5 hours of your day is already gone. So yeah, that was just to stop all of that. Just have a scoop of BCAAs, some salt, and a lot of water, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. So I think just to like caveat that there's nothing magical there necessarily about the BCAAs that actually it's just getting that sweet taste. So I personally use a dissolvable hydration tablet, but it's just flavored. I don't think it hasn't got any calories, but it's just like a citrusy flavor. But again, if you even just have like a 0-calorie sweet tasting drink, you're going to get those benefits from that.
Yeah, don't have unflavored BCAAs.
Yeah.
That might not do the same thing. One thing that we could maybe to ask you guys on is if you were to have the BCAAs, because this is what I find, I don't feel like I need to have a meal straight after. I feel like I can wait a couple of hours and I feel completely fine. And that's been one thing for me that's worked quite well. Have you found the same benefit or anything like that? Or do you normally try and get a meal in straight after if you do train faster?
If I was to train, I'll like to just get a meal in as soon as I can after training. But I think that's more just a mental thing.
Yeah.
I think it's just been ingrained. Not because I need to get my food in because of the anabolic window. It's more just like I'm bloody hungry. I've been moving around the last couple of hours. But no, I think that there is definitely something to that as well. And I think what is contributing to that hunger suppression is the salt. I think salt is one of the most underutilized ingredients in sort of like a fasted pre-workout formula. Many people still avoid a ton of salt.
Yeah.
Like, I've spoken to people who completely stop salting their foods, and coincidentally, also people who give into cravings and seem to binge quite often too. I think there's definitely a connection there, which we can probably talk about later. But yeah, I think with the hunger suppression stuff, I think it also comes down to the sweetness that you're consuming. I think that definitely has some benefit to keeping hunger at bay for a while. And if you've been training intensely, this varies from person to person. Intensity for some people can actually blunt hunger for a little bit. But for some, I fall into the latter camp where I need to eat straight after some heavy training because I just want to refuel. But I think it's just been because of years of conditioning. So I think that's probably more mental too. I could probably go like an hour or two if I just stuck it out, but I prefer to eat.
Yeah. What do you think the link between salt and binging is then?
Well, if you're restricting your salt, right? So we know, sodium helps get glucose into the muscle cells, and it has many other regulations of the body that just help manage those sort of things a lot better. I think a lot of people feel low blood sugar symptoms of that lightheadedness, right? And they think, oh, I need sugar, when in fact you probably need a bit of salt, And I think once people actually start salting their food adequately, now we're not saying to drench all your food in salt. We're not telling you to have like 10, 20 grams of salt per day. That's not what we're saying at all. Salting to taste for most people, especially if the majority of your diet is coming from whole foods, a lot of fruits and vegetables as well, that are going to give you that potassium. So you get that nice little ratio. You're going to be great. But I think an error that most people make when they transition to eating a more whole foods based diet is that they stop salting their foods. They cut it out completely because previously a lot of their salt was potentially coming from highly processed junk food. So now, by completely eliminating all of that, now they're just going a lot of fruit, a lot of veg. And I think this could also explain why some people get headaches too initially. It's like they've really drastically dropped their sodium intake without knowing. That probably also contributes to the water weight loss at the start. But people forget to add salt back in, or they've been told that salt is bad, full stop. It's just like, no, salt isn't bad if it's, you can get symptoms, you can get complications by going too low in sodium as well as too high. So there is that sweet little middle ground, which does seem to be just salt your food to taste. So yeah, I think it's a huge thing that people take for granted. I'm sure you've seen that too.
It tastes amazing as well. Start salting your food. You take your food, just automatically tastes better as well.
Yeah.
You also need to remember to drink enough water as well. You don't, because some people, you can add salt and then you don't even drink enough water, and then next thing you know, you're just severely dehydrated. So it's important. And also, like, remember, if you do increase your salt, and your water regulation happens quite well. So you just need to make sure that you do match your water intake accordingly. And likewise, if you hike up your water intake and you don't increase your salt, it's also going to cause issues. So
yeah, you still get dehydrated. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, salt is a game changer in there. I remember my first ever peak week. I don't know if I told you, I must have explained this before, but my first ever peak week in 2014, when I discovered the magic of salt on pumps. Actually, no, this was 2017 when I really did it properly. And then everything was just salt. I was salting my foods like non-stop, thinking, this is the secret to plant, the secret to salt strength. And it's getting quite ridiculous. Like the amount of salt I had on a teaspoon, and then I just pulled that back a bit, and yeah, because it was just causing me to drink so much water. I was having to drink like 2 liters of water in between each meal just to keep on top of it.
Yeah,
I think the big thing to think about is just what your food's made up of. If it, the reason the government put out this low salt thing is because a lot of the general population's diet is made up of this highly processed food, so they don't need to be adding additional salt in there. But if you're someone who's eating, unprocessed foods, so if you're doing that, if it fits your macros and all your carbs come from Pop-Tarts and stuff, you don't need to probably salt your food. But if you're doing it from unprocessed foods, then it's likely that you'd benefit. And also, if you are exercising a lot, say Ivan, doing cardio and then train as well, it's probably going to be sweating quite a bit. So replenishing some of those electrolytes is going to be important as well. So your requirement for salt is going to be higher as well.
I actually track my salt. Of course, I did.
And you're going to say I track my sweat.
No, that's the next step. And I was consuming anywhere up to potentially 8 to 10 grams quite easily of sodium, which equates to about 16 to 18 grams of table salt, right? So there's a bit of it. It's not like a 1-to-1. People think that's 3 grams of table salt equals 3 grams of sodium. No. It's usually like maybe 40% of that, I think. Don't quote me on that. So, but it's something like that. So if I was getting, say, 18, 20 grams of table salt, whatever that means, then I was getting about 8 to 10 grams of sodium per day. And I was still urinating quite a lot, and I didn't feel thirsty, felt good. But that, as Ed said, that's someone who is quite active, Yeah, and I have a lot of potassium in my diet too.
Just keeping an eye on your urine color is a good way to do it as well.
Yeah.
If you're pissing yellow like throughout between each meal, you probably you can tell when you haven't had enough water.
When it goes brown, you're in trouble.
Yeah, go to the hospital if that happens. Yeah. Legit, your kidney's dying.
So yeah, that's optimizing training performance depending on different times. You got the morning, afternoon, and the only one I'd say is the evening, but there's probably less to discuss and more just things not to do. And the obvious things here are not to overly caffeinate yourself, overly stimulate yourself, just because of the impact on the nervous system and your sleep that's gonna be affected by that. So that's the only caveat I'd say for the evening ones is just don't over caffeinate.
Yeah, and make sure you have a good wind down routine straight after.
I think just another thing, maybe just for evening routines, is because there's so much of the day beforehand, there's a lot of variables that could overrun or things crop up, which is just the nature of it. If you're going to train, then that's fine. But I think what you did yesterday is interesting and worth sharing, because potentially you have, if you have an average day, normal day on your normal routine, go and do your normal session. But if you have an absolute beast of a day, you feel knackered, it's been stressed at work, whatever it's been, you may not feel, the thought of going in and doing a full leg session is like, oh, that's so daunting, maybe I'll just skip it. But if you'll skip it, you won't get it in again that week. Instead of leaving the whole session, you can go in, hit your indicator lifts, even if it's just a couple of sets. Like I think last night you went in and just did your Bulgarians, is that right?
Yeah, I did a leg curl set as well, just to warm the hammies. Did
so
leg curl set.
And then left.
Total 3 sets.
I did. Yeah. So I did 2 sets leg curl, 1 set Bulgarian. I did some arms as well, just to pop up. I had the new t-shirt on, right? So I had to come in, get the guns pumping.
Had to fill it out.
It was so well fit. I was like, what? I can't waste this opportunity.
Sodium
I think that's a good example.
I was in and out in 20-30 minutes.
Yeah. Instead of doing this long, potentially daunting session, you can still go in, do your big bang for your buck stuff, and maybe some arms, and then you can, you might not do everything that you'd had planned, but you can still do the 80% that's really going to matter. And then when you have a quieter day the next time that week, you get the full session in. But getting in and still doing it applies to all times of day, but I think most to the evening, just because of the variability in the day.
Well, that variability is like, even if you can't track your stress, right? You can't track your output in that respect. And I think that's what the biggest variability is, especially if you're in a high pressure environment. That can take its toll on you in the day. And then you even sometimes, like yesterday, I felt like I was going to hit PRs left, right, center. I was running on adrenaline, but by the time I got it going, I knew that my strength was just not there. Everything just felt heavier. And then towards the end, I was like, you know what? Just have to call it. I lost 2 reps across the board, but next week I'll get there again. So yeah, I think that's one thing to bear in mind with the evening stuff for sure.
Yeah, psychological fatigue is very real. Very real.
Well, yeah, your body doesn't know, right? It doesn't know between different stresses. You could be running on crazy adrenaline and not moving all day, and your body's pretty stressed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even if it's a good one, like even if you're just feeling like on a really adrenaline type, like in a good positive adrenaline, like it's not bad stuff. It's still the same impact.
Yep. Agreed.
So yeah, I think that's everything.